Hey everybody, welcome to week 3, assignment 3, video critique. Um, this time around we're going to be looking at Melissa, Becca, DJ, and Penny's work. Want to start off by apologizing for the lateness of of posting this. I spent the better part of the last 2 days in a car, and that is because I ended up going on a road trip that I didn't know I was going on until about an hour before it happened. But that is life for you. Anyway, so I'm here now, and I had considered just typing all of this out, sort of doing written critiques, but I feel like you guys get more out of this. Like, I feel like I can convey more information to you in relatively the same amount of time, so decided to do it this way and just leave the fact that it's going to be up on the web a little bit later than I would like. So having said all of that, let's go ahead and get started. First up, we're going to look at Melissa's panoramic image. I just want to start by just giving you guys a brief look at her images that she used to piece this together. And yeah, it looks like we definitely are going to have a lot of overlap here. And part of that too is that they're vertical rather than horizontal. I actually think that is totally fine. I don't have an opinion one way or the other. A lot of people do them horizontal. Other people do them vertical. Definitely is a different look. When I do it, pretty much always do them horizontal, or not horizontal, but vertical. Just because you end up with a really wide panorama if you do them horizontal, and there's more of a chance, I think, of getting some of that sort of what do I want to say? It's like around the edges of your images, there can be a bit of a light fall off. It tends to be brighter here in the middle, and then it falls off slightly around the edges. Not usually noticeable in an individual frame, but sometimes if you put them all together, you don't have enough overlap, you can start to see the sort of a darkness in between the frames. When in doubt, shoot more, as Melissa did here. But yeah, I just wanted to put that one up for a second here. And let's look at her actual 2 panorama views. Here's the first one. I feel like this is a pretty good candidate for a panorama image because, again, a lot of the directional force of this thing is, very horizontal. And in my opinion, it's certainly not a hard and fast rule that every panorama image needs to have a lot of sort of horizontal directionality, you might call it. Sort of this is mainly a horizontal image. Even if you just took a single frame, the directionality within that frame is more horizontal than it is vertical. But yeah, put together like this, it does feel like this fits with the subject matter fits with this format. So that's always a good thing. Now this is it has a little bit of a blue cast to it. And you can see it kind of like here in the snow. That's something doesn't bother me too much. It's a small thing that sort of is catching my eye, but it's also a fairly easy thing to get rid of. Once you have this all together, just add an just a adjustment layer right on top of it and sort of desaturate, or not necessarily desaturate. You could do like a color balance and simply lower the blue, or you can do curves layer, curves adjustment layer, and then within the curves sort of get rid of some of that blue. Let's look at her other image and then judge which one we like more. So this is that same thing, but it's more of a distressed look. To me, actually, what this looks like is almost like crumpled paper, and then the effect itself is slightly blurred, like a Gaussian blur. I actually think that between the two versions, prefer the one that we were looking at first. This one. But again, I mean, part of the assignment was to do both ways. I just think I like this more. I don't know if I quite feel like this effect, it feels more like it's on top of the image rather than being part of the image. I don't think it's bad, I just think I prefer the other version more. But one thing about this one is you do definitely get less of that blue cast to it. You just go back and forth between those two. I mean, you can definitely see part of it, I think, is that the effect that she applied to it has some yellow in it. But I think both versions definitely have points to them. I might have actually ended the photo right here rather than having this little bit of space here, like cut it off right there, so it was really side to side, building side to side, filling the frame. The fact it stops here, that has a little bit of sort of empty sky there, but not on that side. It's making me feel that, I think. But yeah, I feel like overall that is a successful image. And again, this is the version I prefer. All right, let's look at Becca's images here, which are these two. All right. Now this is something that you don't, that I don't necessarily see a lot of, shooting more like pretty much into the sun. In this case, I do like it. I think that this is pretty good image. I want to take a look at the other version of this too while we're looking at it. I think between these two, I like this version better. And I think, let me just look at the other one for one more second here. I think I like the film grain look here and the sort of removal of some of the color elements. Whereas the other one is, sort of the color that is, the color as it appears on the screen, or I see not on the screen, but in the scene. Obviously this does still have a lot of color in it, but it's more of a monochromatic sort of color palette. I feel like I like that because this is more, to me this feels more like a black and white image, and this is closer to black and white. Again, because I think in a balance between the color elements and the formal elements, I think this is stronger formally than it is, I think the formal elements are stronger than the color elements, and when you remove most of the color, make it more or less monochromatic as it is here, it does emphasize those formal elements, which I think are the stronger of the two groups. I kind of wish I could see this a little bit more. I feel like it's getting just a little bit lost in the background. So I feel like that's a cool element. Like you sort of have sort of these trees, these natural elements, and then within that, all that you have this man-made element, but it has the same verticality that a lot of these trees have. So it's sort of like, there's an echo of some of what's happening with the vertical lines of the trees, and yet it's man-made versus natural. I kind of wish that a few of these little things weren't there to make it feel. Yeah, I'm kind of like, what I'm doing now is actually taking my finger and sort of covering it with my finger. I guess it just kind of, I don't know what it is. It sort of like makes it feel a little bit more like you're in nature as opposed to like in a park. Um, I don't know why it makes that much of a difference to me. I mean, I guess I'm seeing like what looks like some other man-made stuff sort of in the background, but yeah. But I do like that film grain look. Something about the texture of that within this image, I think, is really working well. I do sort of like a little bit of the lens flare elements that you're getting here as well. I think those are adding something to the image also. Yeah, nice work, Beck. Next up, we're going to be looking at DJ's work. And, okay, so that's these two. And then there's a third one that's a side-by-side. Let's start out by focusing on these two. And this is, I think, a really nice landscape image. I'm actually going to zoom in on this because this... Okay, right there. Okay. Let's see here. It's interesting because it's like... I kind of feel like this is like, you know, Earth, like paradise, tropical, awesome, you know, sort of awesome view here. And like this is, I mean, it's obviously the same scene, and yet somehow it feels like it's like set on Mars or something. Maybe not Mars, but like Jupiter, you know, like it feels like it's from another planet. And really just that little bit of a change really kind of, you know, I mean, it's essentially the same image, and yet somehow it feels a lot different. I don't know if I could say that I like one over the other, because I feel like there's really a big difference in what's going on. Just that, like that natural scene, but with this like intense blue, it just looks like it's from another planet. I do think that this is a pretty successful, you know, landscape panorama image. Again, you have, oops, sorry, I wanted to talk about the other version. Okay. You know, again, you have the long, sort of horizontal nature. Even this kind of like more of a man-made element here, I feel like is really kind of adding something interesting to this scene. Well, it's interesting because you can almost feel like humidity on your skin, and sort of like it feels like you could almost be there. Like you've sort of captured something of the experience of standing in this spot that I think is really, well, it's very neat. I think it's just, there's something about it, like you feel like you really are there. I think this would be a really pretty excellent one to put up on your wall, you know, sort of. Oh, I mean, obviously you wouldn't necessarily put it on your wall because you can outside and see this, but I mean, you could put it up on your wall as an example of good work that you've done, certainly. But I feel like this is something to like you know, someone back on the mainline would put up on their wall, and you know, as a sort of like stare at it and be like, I wish I was there, you know, and not like in the way that, you know, a snapshot would remind you of being there, but in the sense that you really feel like you're there as you're looking at it. So yeah, nice work, DJ. Very nice. That just looks like it's from outer space. Alright, and then last but not least, we have Penny's image here. And we're getting, you know, a lot of people did landscapes for this, and I feel like that's a pretty appropriate thing to do, because I mean, a lot of these do tend to be landscapes, because I just feel like it's, people recognize that it's kind of suited to this. That's another thing here where like this sort of slight this tinting effect that she did is really, it's kind of it's not quite as like sort of outer spacey as I don't know if that's even like an adjective, but it doesn't have that feeling of outer space like DJ's does, but it definitely is a really kind of interesting take on it. I feel like yeah, I feel like both of these are really nice. This is really nicely composed. Um, Again, and some of these I've seen where like they sort of feel like they're, you know, like tops of things are being chopped off or something. Like this feels like it just feels like a really well composed, long version of this image. You know, it's not like super long to the point where like you can't. You know, sometimes if you have like a really long panorama, you almost can't track from side to side because it's just like too long. This I feel like you do get that effect of the panorama, but you also it's not so wide that like you're like having a hard time taking the whole thing in at once. Um, but yeah, I do feel like I really like sort of some of the lines that you have here, like this kind of arc coming in here, sort of subtler, more gentle arc here, and man, even some of this stuff I think is kind of interesting. I guess some sort of like I think a lot of this is texture. A lot of what's going on here is visual texture, like sort of you can almost feel like the roughness of this. Not in the same way where like with DJ's image where you almost have like like you can almost feel the humidity on your skin. This one is more like a visual thing where it like I find myself drawn to sort of the actual texture of, you know, like the rough looking nature of this versus kind of the smoothness of this water and sort of the gritty feeling of some of the stuff here. I think that this is I kind of want to see this as a black and white. Surprisingly, like I've seen so many black and whites here, but I feel like this is another one where because it's so formally strong, like black and white would sort of accentuate that, sort of play up that element. And even though it is, I mean, it's not by any means monochromatic. It is, it doesn't have a huge sort of chromatic range. Like you have basically, excuse me, a lot of earth tones, a lot of browns, a lot of greens, a lot of grays. I would say it has a subtle palette. I think that's actually one of the things I like the most about it. I think in black and white with just like a little pop of contrast, that would be another really interesting way to look at it. I think probably another, yeah. You go in here, I just think that's cool. I think I like the sort of, again, just as with the other version, it's not monochromatic, but it is sort of a lot of similar tones. It's basically just the kind of the browns and grays have been replaced by blues and purples, and I guess the grays, a lot of the grays are still gray. But I think this is, it's like slightly subversive, but in a subtle way. I guess slightly would indicate subtlety. Yeah. Nice work all around. So, the word that you should post beneath here to let me know that you watched the whole thing. It's actually 2 words, apple pie. Why apple pie? Because I love apple pie with ice cream. I think it's delicious. One of my favorite things to eat, which explains why I've been gaining weight. But not that it's here or there. I'm also getting older, so whatever. So yeah, apple pie. And thank you all very much for your hard work and thank you for your patience with these coming out a little bit late. And go to my